Large-scale ethanol production for fuel began in the 1970s, and at the time the process for making ethanol required more energy input per gallon than a gallon of ethanol produced. The stigma of ethanol being an energy sink has stuck around despite great leaps made in the efficiency of producing the fuel. The net energy balance for ethanol was negative to neutral at first. Today, however, most scientists believe the net energy balance for ethanol is positive and increasing. There has been a large improvement in the ethanol energy balance since 1995, and a small but positive improvement since 2008, according to the United States Department of Agriculture. A frequently overlooked area in the ethanol energy balance is that of ethanol co-products. Dry mill ethanol plants produce co-products such as distillers' grains for livestock feed and carbon dioxide used in the food and beverage industry as well as for industrial purposes. By not accounting for the production of these other products, it appears as though ethanol is consuming more energy in its production. New studies taking these co-products into account show ethanol as a more viable source of energy. Ethanol production itself has also become much more efficient. The energy used to produce a gallon of denatured ethanol, measured as average BTUs consumed per gallon, was 31,588 in 2004. In 2007, that average had been reduced to 27,298 BTUs per gallon, according to one study. Production plants are also now selling wet distillers' grains. Much of the energy consumed in an ethanol plant is in drying co-product distillers' grains, with plants producing dried distillers' grains consuming more energy than plants with wet production. One study, the Christensen and Associates reports, shows 4-year efficiency improvements realized by plants selling wet distillers' grains of over 21%. Farmers are also contributing to increased production efficiency. In the last 30 years, farmers have increased their production from approximately 75 bushels per acre to about 150 bushels per acre, which means we are now producing more ethanol with less fertilizer, reducing pollution.
In a typical ethanol plant, high-starch feed wheat is used, which is delivered from farmers to the feed mill where large material is removed and it is added to bins. Following the delivery of the feed starch, milling occurs. The grain enters the plant and is milled down through a hammer mill so that maximum surface area is achieved. Then, the milled starch enters the mash phase, where hot water and enzymes are added to maintain a constant viscosity. Then, the mash enters a hot cooker where the grain is sterilized and the starch is hydrolyzed to form a fermentable sugar. The mash now enters a new tank where enzymes, typically alpha amylase, convert the starch into sugars. Additional forms of yeast are used based on the feed grain to finish the conversion of the sugar into ethanol and carbon dioxide. At this step, it is crucial to maintain high sanitation levels to reduce the growth of bacteria that may taint the ethanol quality. The product is now called beer, and it contains 10 to 12% alcohol per volume. It now enters a distillation column where the alcohol is distilled off, eventually reaching an alcohol content of 99.5%. Beads allow the ethanol to pass through while the water remains trapped, while the beads that are containing water are continuously removed throughout the process. After this, a tanker will typically take the ethanol and bring it to a satellite blending station where it is mixed with gasoline up to 10% ethanol.
The United States and Brazil produce the most bioethanol as fuel, with production rates of 15,330 and 7,295 liquid gallons of fuel ethanol in 2016, respectively, and the market is growing worldwide, with an expected value of $116.65 billion by 2025. This expansion is encouraged by the increased mandates in several countries for the blending of ethanol with gasoline as a means to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The U.S. export of fuel ethanol has shifted recently from Europe to Asia, with the European market shrinking from 28% in 2012 to just 5% in 2015, and the Asian market growing rapidly from 2% in 2012 to 31% in 2015. Canada also remains a significant market, with 28% of the U.S.'s fuel ethanol exports in 2015. Although the domestic and international sale of the product has seen fairly consistent growth since 2000, there are still challenges associated with the industry. The first challenge is that of compatibility with vehicles and infrastructure availability. Many retail gas stations simply don't offer ethanol alternatives and don't possess the necessary infrastructure for such fueling. This greatly impacts consumer awareness about fossil fuel alternatives and is a huge impediment to the viability of mid and higher level blends. These products also carry complicated regulations that may dissuade fueling stations from upgrading their equipment. As for vehicle compatibility, the prospects are more promising. Currently, there are almost 18 million flex fuel vehicles in the US, which can make use of blends up to 85% ethanol. Despite this, probably because of the aforementioned infrastructural and educational factors, an average flex fuel engine uses less than 14 gallons of E85 a year. There is hope, though, as high-octane ethanol blends become more and more competitive in price, and use of these renewable biofuels will